What's up, nerds and nerdettes and weird little nerdlings all? It's your buddy Big Johnny G from Two Gun Pixie presents Legendary Gaming. Alright, so we are at the third part 3 of our 3-part series, Big Johnny G's 666 favorite games for Halloween. And this third one focuses in on some old-timey sci-fi horror. Yeah, sci-fi was considered a subgenre of science fiction at the time. And what I'm talking about is Lovecraftian games, Cthulhu-inspired mythos tale games. Yes, indeed, my friends, these are some very dark and twisted tales, all end in one way or another in sanity, if not complete destruction. What games would be good under that banner for Halloween? Well, I'll meet you down the table. We'll talk about it. Here we are down the table, my friends. Thank you for stopping by and having this, checking this little vlog out. So, my 6 favorite Cthulhian-based games that I think are really fun for Halloween. Now, there's a heck of a lot of these games out. So, which ones do I think kind of rose to the top, so to speak? And we're going to start down at the bottom. My number 6 game. See, I got my notes right here. Got my notes. Because this is important. My number 6 game for my favorite Cthulhian-based games to play on Halloween. Wow, that is a mouthful. I don't think I'm going to say that again. You know what I'm talking about. So, number 6, we're going to start off. This is the only game in the list that's lighthearted. It's definitely not nice. But it is lighthearted. So this is by Atlas Games, and it's called Cthulhu Gloom. Now, I recently spoke about the core, the base game, the parent game, Gloom, on one of my Tabletop Takeout Tuesdays, I believe it was. If you had seen that, then just put Cthulhu or Lovecraft in front of anything you heard in that video. It's really the same game. It doesn't bring anything really all that new. I believe that what I find to make it special, more than anything else, any minor tweaks that they have for this version aside, is actually the Cthulhu part of it. Now, if you're not familiar with Gloom and you're wondering what the heck I'm talking about, at its core, it's a take-that style game. But let me tell you something about it. You're running a family of up to 5, and you want to make their lives as miserable as possible. Oh, and then when you make them as miserable as possible, yep, it's time to send them to the grave, my friend, and that's how you're going to score points on them. Now, while you're doing that, the other players are going to be doing to you what you're going to be doing to the other players. And that's playing nice things on their families, or them on your family. Yeah, really nice things. And that's bad for your points. It is bad. You don't want that. You want them miserable. You want bad things to happen to them. So that's the gist of the game. That is what the game is about. Yeah, you can see that is screaming for some old gods, elder beings, Lovecraft-style makeover. And it works. As far as I know right now, I think there's only one expansion for the game. And that is Unpleasant Dreams. Now, this game uses a very interesting style. It's not unique, At the time, this game came out in 2011, this game came out. And at the time, I didn't know of anything else like this at the time. It uses clear cards. So when you're scoring by playing effects, either effects on your cards or effects on the other player cards, your transparent cards are transparent all except for like 1 or 2 spots where it's going to be inked out and there's going to be a new set of scoring numbers on it. And that will cancel out any other scoring numbers underneath it. So if only one of the 3 possible spots change, you can still see the other 2 underneath the clear card, with the clear card covering up the new high number. You know what I mean? I think I'm going to find some pictures. It's not complicated at all. The clear thing makes it very, very simple. It actually does. And that is really, really fun. I love looking at these cards, and that always helps you want to play a game, as if you want to look at it. And I said it's a take that style game, and it's not just take that, it's a storytelling. You don't have to play storytelling with it. I never have played it without storytelling, so I don't know how it feels firsthand. But playing it by telling the stories as you're dealing the cards out, I know that's one of the main reasons I really like this game. It's written well, it's fun. If you're familiar with the artist Edward Gorey and his work, this is going to be very familiar to you. Charles Addams, who popularized his creation, the Addams Family, it'll be familiar. This will be familiar, and it's written and drawn so much that it draws you into their worlds. It really does, and that helps you with the storytelling. And the storytelling is very simple. When you play a card like Pursued by Poodles, you tell a little story. You just don't play it on your opponent, friend, ex-friend. Now, this game has never busted a friendship. No, it hasn't. But when you play the card, you'll tell the story why. You were walking down the street, you discarded a bottle, you finished a bottle of soda, and you just threw it away, and it hit a poodle in the head, and the poodle and the other poodles that were all with it, and the walking, the walking seat that the dog walker had with like 18 poodles, they all broke away from him, went crazy, and the characters were pursued by poodles. So it does make it fun when you tell the stories. So this game plays 13 and up, and it's for 2 to 5 players by Atlas Games. It makes for a fun game. It'll run you about 60 minutes of your time, at least. Yeah, so you're going to want to check out Cthulhu Gloom for your Halloween game. Number 5 game coming in. The number 5 game about tree frog games. And that is A Study in Emerald. Now, this game was sitting on the shelf for a while. Only recently got played, and it was so much fun, it made it on the list. If this was a top 5, it would have just squeaked by. But since it's the Halloween time, we're doing 666. So it made it on by the hair of its teeth. That's not the same. So this game plays 2 to 5 players, suggested 13 and up. And they say the runtime is going to be about 60 minutes. That's probably not too far off. It does play fairly tight. Even your first game through is not going to run over that by more than time and a half, or half a time, I should say. It's going to play well. This is a game, now, unlike Cthulhu Gloom, which was all versus all, this game is more side versus side. The problem is it's all hidden roles, so nobody knows whose side who is on. Or is it whose side whom is on? And that makes it very interesting. So the idea behind this game is sometime in the 1100s, the elder beings descended to Earth, woke up from the deep sea, came in through otherworld gates, and took things over. Because let's face it, it was the 1100s. Who could do anything to stop them? Now the game is based on a short story by Neil Gaiman, and It takes place in the Victorian era, as the game does. It has Sherlock Holmes and those kind of contemporary literary figures. Sherlock Holmes he plays a part in the game, as well as Moriarty and Watson and many of the familiar characters from the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle series. Now, in this game, everyone is one of two sides. You're either a loyalist who believes that things should stay the same way they are, that these elder beings, these royalties, as you've come to call them over the ages, loom over the world, letting the world move on as it will. And they're just sucking up energy, and I guess occasionally people too. And these people want things to stay the same. They're benefiting something from it. Now, on the other side is the restorationists, and they want to overturn and put things back, human in charge. And it's always been a pipe dream until the invention of dynamite. Now the pipe dream has become a pipe bomb. Dozens of them. And they know they can take out these royalties, these old ones, these elder beings, these things from beyond space and time. Now, you might think it would be fairly easy to tell the difference between these. However, the loyalists are agitators themselves, because their royalty survive off of the negative energies of humanity. They like to keep things very, very on edge, very, very electric, so to speak. So it's hard to tell one from the other. Kind of is. So this game it's a deck building game at the same time, while it's also an area control and influence game. And during the course of the game, you're going to be using your deck to gain equipment, to get people, agents, so to speak, agents to follow you and help do your bidding. And they all have abilities their own that are unique to them. So while the game is progressing, you're sitting around the table and you got to figure out who's who. And it does give the game a sort of political thriller sort of feel, with tentacles, teeth, fanged tentacles, eyes on the tentacles too, and a bunch of other things you don't even know what they are. All over this political thriller. This is a really good game. It's going to run people about, what does it say, 60 minutes? Yeah, that's going to be right, like I said. That's not too far off. And you put this game at the table, and you're going to get everyone involved, because they so much have to pay attention to everyone else. If you're playing this game to win, and if you're not, why are you playing it? Now, I know you're playing for fun, but you got to want to win a little bit. It's one thing to be a good winner. Want to be a winner. If you can't be a winner, at least have the energy to try to win. So with the way you win the game with the points, I'm getting off track here, talking faster than I can think. It's gonna engage everyone, because you got to pay attention to this stuff. That's what I'm getting to in a long-winded way. If Alex was editing this video, he'd probably make fun of me right now. And the game is going to make you sit there and think. I'm not calling it chess, but it does make you think almost as intently as a game like that would, because you got to figure this out. You don't want to lose. If you lose, you'll get eaten or blown up. Either way, it's over. And everyone on the table is going to point fingers and laugh at you. So trust me on this. Neil Gaiman's A Study in Emerald, by Martin Wallace, actually, is the designer of the game. So that's another reason going in that it should be a good game. You're going to want to play this Tree Frog game. This is a good Halloween game. All right. Moving on? Sure. My number 4 game is by Z-Man Games, and it is Pandemic: Reign of Cthulhu. Now, if you're a fan of either Pandemic or Cthulhu, then you should already know about this game. And if you don't, relax. I got you. So the basic idea behind any sort of pandemic game is that there is an outbreak, and this game follows suit. In this case, it is an outbreak of cultists and Shoggoths. You don't want Shoggoths. No, you better get rid of them right away. Trust me on this. It's a 2 to 4 player game, listed for 14 and up. The game should run 40 to 60 minutes. Your first game may be close to 90, unless you tank out real fast. And that can happen. If you're familiar with Pandemic, it follows the same ideas. Being the fact that this is just the Lovecraft New England instead of the world, it doesn't wrap around, so you actually have to go back and forth and back and forth. But the train system helps, the buses help. And you get around the same way. This is a card management set collection sort of game, because you're going to be collecting different sets of cards which correspond to the different cities on the game map. And you're going to use them for various effects, such as closing gates. Highly important. Now, the characters in this game are really fun and great. At the same time, they're all very familiar tropes for the Lovecraftian game. There's the ex-cultist, a magician, a gangster. We've seen it all before. But it works. Also, if you're familiar with Pandemic, they're pretty much the same characters. You can see the similarities between the characters in both games. Like in Pandemic, you have the medic and the dispatch and such, and you see the similarities in these characters. It's a really fun game. It uses action points, and it uses point-to-point movement. So that makes movement and actually action use really fast and easy, because you know what you're going to do. You probably set up the move ahead by the time you're finishing the current move you're on. Maybe that's one reason the game can tend to fly a little bit. Now, it's a cooperative game, so be careful if you have any alpha gamers in your group, because any Pandemic-style game can very easily be taken over by an alpha gamer. That's probably my only caveat with these games. You're going to want to check out Pandemic, Reign of Cthulhu for your Halloween games. It's a really fun game. Down to the final 3. Yes. I don't know, it just seemed fun. All right, the number 3 game is by Fantasy Flight Games, and this is Eldritch Horror. This is actually hitting the gaming table this weekend. We've already been planning a big epic fight in this game. Campaign, story. Yeah, it's going to be an adventure, all right. So this Final Fantasy Flight game, wow, I just got 2 things completely mixed up. This Fantasy Flight game is listed for 14 and up, and it can handle up to 8 players. I think I tried it with 6 players once, and it got so bogged down with the time, and the between player time it just increases, and there's more time that you're sitting there doing absolutely nothing between your turns, and it gets rough. There are people that house rule ways around this. If you're curious, look them up. No, I don't mean that sarcastically. I mean that very seriously. Please look them up. They'll be very helpful to you. Because Eldritch Horror is a great game, and it needs to be played. This is an extremely story-driven game. Each of the different elder beings that you can choose to go up against or randomly pick before the game begins has their own set of decks geared towards the mystery of this elder being or cosmic occurrence. And these cards, that not only they tell you the story, but they're also giving you the clues and leading you down the path that you're going to need to go to and know things you're going to need to know in order to finish closing everything up. Because if you don't, the game's not over. The game's over. The game's not over. You just then have to face the old one that ended up rising because of your bad luck or incompetence. And that's pretty much game over at that point, depending on which elder being you're using. Maybe one of the weaker ones like Yig you might stand a better chance up against. But no, it's over. Sorry. The board is beautiful. The characters are beautiful. Now, the characters are very familiar because Fantasy Flight Games uses the same set of characters for their Arkham File horror games, which this falls under. It uses these characters to good design because it gives them each the ability to do something, to bend a rule, do something different that other characters can't do. Variable powers. Sorry about that. And some of you may have noticed after watching these videos, sometimes I talk faster than I can think. It's my curse, and I have to bear it. But yeah, it's a cooperative game, so make sure your players enjoy co-op games because you're going to need to be really cooperative. You're going to have to be working together. You're going to have to be doing things for the other players on your turn, and they're going to have to be doing things for you on your turn. Otherwise, you're not going to stand a chance. Really, you're not. So, Eldritch Horror by Fantasy Flight Games. If you're looking for an all-night epic game to play during Halloween, you might want to consider that. It's the game for you, I think. Two. Magic. Number 2 on my favorite list for Cthulhu games. Remember I said I wasn't going to go over that whole thing too long. So my second favorite is by Fabled Nexus Games, which is part of Greater Than Games, who does the Sentinels of the Multiverse, that, as you know, is my favorite superhero card game of all time. But we're not here talking about that category, so I digress. We're talking about Fate of the Elder Gods. Now, out of the games on this list thus far and finally, this is the only game on the list, and it's not the only one on the market that does this. There's a few, and there's been a few more, but this is the only game on this list where you're not playing the investigators. No. Haven't you done that enough, my friends? You're playing the other side. You're going to the dark side. Come to the dark side. We have tentacles. Yes, you are playing a cultist. This is not a cooperative game. This is not a semi-cooperative game. This is an all-versus-all game. You, my friend, are the leader, the cult leader of one of the chosen elder beings. And these old gods, they each have cults. Yours. No, yours. No. My cult is the right one. They're all nuts, those other ones. And that's who we're going to send the Inquisitors to. Yeah, these investigators, yeah, that's who we're sending them to. Keep them off our backs. So the game brings you that take that quality to it, because that's exactly what you're doing. Every opportunity you can, whenever investigators come in, and they come in and they try to mess things up on you, you have opportunities in the game to send them to the other players. So it gives a little bit of that take that aspect to it. The game also has a hand management system and a sort of unique system for the spell cards, where you have to match up several, usually 3, sometimes 2, I believe, match up 2 alignments, 2 symbols, 2 constellations in alignment. And there's several spaces around the round board, semi-round, yeah, almost round. And you're going to be dropping off and picking up spell cards from here and trying to match up symbols, and then you're able to have the spell ready to be cast, and you can have 3 spells ready at any time to fire off. And it brings in the system of relics and items, which is very good, very nice, most of them very familiar from the writings of Lovecraft and his contemporaries. The art is amazing. It's really good to look at. The board is done fantastically with its round, almost pentacle, not quite, nor is it an elder sign, but yeah, non-Euclidean circle. Fitting, right? Yeah. it also, if you have the expansion Beasts from Beyond, it'll add in more summoning. There's a couple of summons in the game, but this will add in more summoning, and you're able to bring these monsters in and send them against the other cult members to get eaten, because they're crazy. Don't forget that. They're bat guano crazy. Yeah, I said it. Now, this game is going to run you about 30 and 90 minutes, depending on how many players are at the table. It might run about 120 minutes, close to that 2-hour mark, especially if you're new to the game or it's your very first game. You might want to expect that. But otherwise, it's a really fun game to get down on Halloween, especially since you're playing the other side. Quite appropriate. Now, we're here, my friends. It's almost a half hour in and you're still with me. Congratulations. We'll see how fast I can make this. You know I like to talk. So the number one game, my favorite number one game is also my Fantasy Flight games. Honestly, the only reason Elder Terror wasn't up higher on my list is the long setup time that the game has. Now this one isn't super short, but I find it to be a quicker setup time, so therefore I like to get it to the table more often, and that is Elder Sign. Elder Sign follows this similar story. It's part of the Arkham files for their game systems. It follows the same idea that you're the investigators. In fact, it uses the same investigators. Most of these games, they do tend to have slightly different abilities and do something different between them. So you're not using the exact same character with the exact same card through all of these things. But the familiarity is very nice. It doesn't have a board. It uses card locations. And because the idea is, for the base game anyway, the idea is that you are investigating something that is going on at the Arkham Museum, the Miskatonic Museum. And that is determined by which elder being you choose or blindly pick to be the elder being that you are facing in the game. And there's slightly different effects that these different elder beings, old ones, are going to have during the course of the game. So the location cards are exactly that. They're locations in the museum. And it's a dice set collection game. So it's a dice chucker, and they're always fun. I did an episode on dice set collection games, and this was on that list. It is a great game. It is you're using the dice to solve some of these problems at these locations. Not some of them actually, but all of them. The dice are manipulated by the game itself, which is an aspect I like that not all the dice set collection games have. A few of them do that I've played, and it is an aspect I enjoy, where you're getting used to rolling certain dice, and then all of a sudden a card will come out and be like, as long as I'm here on the table, you ain't rolling no red dice. And you're like, oh man, I hate this card. And usually those are the tougher cards to get rid of. But it's a good challenge, and I think that's why I like that system, because you never honestly know if you're going to be able to use all the dice on any card until you see what that card is, and that makes a big decision about who out of your cooperative team is going to go and try to deal with that. Now, if you go and deal with a card and you fail, you're still at that location until your next turn. So if another player comes in, there is a sort of cooperation there. If during one of your Yahtzee-style dice chucks, you have a die that failed, the other person in the room can actually take that if you have a dice that passed, but not for the effect you need for the next roll you got coming up, you can actually give that to the other person that's in the room already and say, hey, hold on to this clue. Hold on to this attack, hold on to this, whatever it is that you need, this tentacle, whichever the die is. And that helps out, and it brings a strong aspect of teamwork that you don't find in a lot of games, because the other player is actually able to do something while they're there. And that's something about the game that strengthens not only the teamwork, but takes away from the player downtime, because now you're in a location, you're ready and waiting to help somebody. So that anything that helps get rid of player downtime, right? I mean, that's something we're all looking for, basically. Besides a good game. Besides a good game with a great atmosphere. And this game has a great atmosphere. The art, the stories in the cards, they grab you by the throat and force you into the story. It's extremely atmospheric, very thematic. Now, pretty much all the Fantasy Flight Cthulhian games, or pretty much all of them, are very thematic, and this is just as much so. It has some really interesting expansions because, let's face it, like I've been saying, it's an FFG game. They love expansions. They make their money. They send their kids through colleges on you buying their expansions. And me. I'm not pointing you out. Sorry. I do the same thing as well. I'm just as guilty. I'm going to mention the first three. I'm not going to get into the whole list, but real quick, I'll just let you get an idea what the first three are. The first one, especially Unseen Forces, because it brings a lot of the same. Now, normally that's not good because you kind of feel like, why? But out of the first three games, this is the only one that has a huge chunk of it that was more of the same. And I like the way that beefed up the game without relying on the extra expansions to also be like 90% or whatever the same, just bulking up more of the same. Now, like I said, it's not all of the same stuff. It does add in the luck and the curse aspect to this Arkham File game, this Elder Sign game. And basically the curse die, the black one with the white pips on it, it's going to cancel dice on you. While the white one with the black pips on it, that's going to be adding extra help. Well, not pips because it uses symbols, but you know what I mean. Well, if you don't, I'm sure there is, or there will be, or there have been pictures. I'm not editing this while I film. I don't know how to do that. This isn't Spaceballs. You can look up the reference on your own. But yeah, so it is good, more of the same. Now, the next expansion that came out for it, the Garts, not the Garts! I digress. The Gates of Arkham. The Gates of Arkham now takes the story out of the museum and literally out of the gates into the streets of Arkham itself. And with that, it brings another aspect of skills to the game that you're able to learn and keep and retain throughout the course of the game under normal circumstances, unless an effect may end up taking that away from you. And it also adds in memberships, such as to the Sheldon Gang in the Silver Twilight Lodge, which will be giving you benefits during the course of the game. And because it has a little of the same and a lot of new, the exact opposite of Unseen Forces, it's a great balance. I think it really is. If you want to go big, that and the first two expansions would be the way to go if I was buying and wanted to get something extra with the game. Now, the third one you don't have to start with if you're going big. You don't have to start with this at all, but it's another good expansion, and that's Omens of Ice. And this takes the expedition out of Arkham, out of New England completely, and into the wilds of Alaska. And you could end up going during the summertime or possibly be forced to go during the deadest dead of winter time, where it's going to be cold and dark and nighty. Yeah, and night is never a friend of yours when you're dealing with anything horror, much less Cthulhian horror. No, no thank you. It's going to add in weather condition effects, as well as other things like starvation. So these new aspects of the game may only work well for that one aspect, but it does have cards that can be used overall for the game. So again, it's keeping that a little bit of the same with here's more of new. So the balance has been working out great. And they have a few more than that, but I'm not going to take up much more time. You can look up the rest if you're interested. But this really is, I think, my number one favorite Halloween game. Setup time's a little bit longer than I would like, but not as long as I don't like, and that's what's important, actually. Try to keep the count around 3 players, maybe 4 players, and the game will play faster, that's for sure. But yeah, you can have fun with up to 8 players if you want to go for an all-night event. this game will give it to you. It really will. And the stories are nice. They're engaging. Engaging. They're dark. What am I beating around the bush for? They're dark and they're well written, and they do sort of kind of grab you by the ears. I say grab you a lot because that's something that's very sudden, which is why I think I use that. But so you want to check out Elder Sign by Fantasy Flight Games before I continue talking. All right, my friends, those were my six favorite. Was that how many sixes? I lost track. That's my 6 favorite Lovecraft-inspired Cthulhu Mythos board games for Halloween. I hope you enjoy them, and let me know what some of your favorite Cthulhu games to play on Halloween are.